G'day, this video profiles the Nicholson Track which runs from the old Deptford town site all the way to Marthavale. Here's the track profile for the middle section of the Nicholson Track, and I put this up to show you just how up and down the track is, and there's some extremely steep sections to navigate through. The track starts at Deptford. We came in over the old ford near the camping ground, and we shot up through here to what we thought was the start of the track. So it all looked good at this stage, and then we started to get into this bit of track which was fairly overgrown. This day we were driving my wife's 80 series, which is in not bad condition, so at this stage she's getting a bit antsy at me for driving through this section. Anyhow, I'm thinking at some point the track has to open up, but it just got worse. Anyway, so we eventually turned around after about 3/4 of a k, headed back out. And so really the first section of the track, I wouldn't recommend anyone going up there unless you're really prepared to beat your car up. The alternative way to get in there is to come in via the Nicholson Link track, which is marked on my maps as a management vehicle only track, but it appears now that it's just a general access track. So here we are turning onto the Nicholson River track, and finally we're on our way. The start of the track is reasonably easy, with mostly just gentle grades. Very well maintained. You can see there's a little bit of rutting here and there, but overall it was a pretty good track. Didn't take very long before we started to get into the up and down section, so this track literally just goes up and down, up and down. Some really steep hills, and we were expecting it, but I was just amazed. Some of the track was just excellent to drive. Really enjoyed it. There's some awesome view lines off the tops of the tracks in places. Not many obstacles to worry about, other than probably just the steepness of the climbs in and out were fairly interesting. Here's the helipad, which I think is about a third of the way up the track, maybe a bit less. As you drive along the track, the vegetation closes in some areas. This is particularly evident within the gullies. The track appears to experience a fair bit of traffic, and this, I think, keeps the vegetation mostly at bay. You will definitely be touching up with the vegetation as you drive along, so you will get a few scratches here and there. But the track itself, it winds around a fair bit, goes up and down, sort of twists and turns around all the gullies. It's a beautiful drive. We drove this in the afternoon, and we were moving fairly reasonably because we were wanting to get to the Marthavale Hut before it got dark. And it took us about 3 hours to do the track, and that was pushing it at a fair pace. So you know, it is a pretty good track. You can see that the fires, probably the 2019 fires, have been through this area, and it's really knocked the forest about. So what you're driving through in a lot of the areas, particularly up on the tops of the slopes, regrowth areas, so there's a lot of small eucalypts and shrubs coming in now. Here's one of the first obstacles that we come across. This is a heavily rutted clay section, and it doesn't look too steep from the video, but it is got some fair grade to it. Those ruts are really deep, and I think if it was wet, this could be a lot of fun trying to get up and down this part of the hill. As it was moist on the day we went through, but it wasn't wasn't any drama. You can sort of see in the distance there some of the view lines as you go up and down these hills are superb. On the day we were out, didn't see another vehicle, so we just had the track to ourselves, which was really good fun. I would rate this track as a solid medium track, with the potential to be difficult in wet conditions, I think, but overall I think it's very doable. Probably wouldn't recommend beginners come in here by themselves. I think it'd be good to have some company on the first time through here, but definitely well worth the effort, I say. As we were driving along, we suddenly came out onto this big opening with a hut in the middle of it. Turns out it's actually a mining lease, and it appears to be a private hut, so it's heavily locked up, and cameras are everywhere. So anyway, there's a fair bit of old mining infrastructure around the location to have a look at as you drive through. This really surprised us. I was unaware there were working mines in this area. One of the reasons why we were on the Nicholson Track was to see whether we could track down the ruins of a hut called the Stuttering Fred Hut, which I now understand is completely gone, and I'm not quite sure whether it was there before the fires or not, but certainly it had been located along this track at one point in time. The track doesn't go over too many creeks. There's a few tributaries heading down into the Nicholson. Here's one of the rutted sections, which would take a little bit of care if it was a bit muddy, but the day we went through it wasn't too bad. Just a few ruts here and there. You can see as we drive through the forest in this section that the vegetation has been absolutely smashed by those fires. Here's probably the second obstacle that we came across, which is a fairly heavily rutted section. Once again, it was not too bad to navigate through. A few potholes here and there. This track just offers everything. It's got a few little creek crossings, a few obstacles, a few clay sections, some extremely steep climbs up and down some of the hills. It's got some awesome scenery. I would really rate it as one of the iconic tracks in the high country. I just think it's fantastic. Here's one of the obstacles. You can see there's a log across the track just there. We had to just climb over it very carefully, but even with a lifted 80 series, we still managed to scrape the chassis rails as we went over, which was surprising to me. So it's just something to be aware of. If you did happen to come across this log, you might want to take your time getting over it. Didn't see a lot of campsites along this track. There's a few spots here and there where you could probably pull up and camp for the night, but overall there's not a lot of open areas where you would want to camp, and the track remains fairly well off the Nicholson River itself. So as we approached Marthavale, the track itself started to show a lot more signs of being used, and as you'll see up ahead, the track is fairly deteriorated. There's quite a lot of bog holes, rutting. Clearly people who are coming to Marthavale are probably poking their noses down the track and having a bit of fun, and it was pretty obvious we were getting closer. You can see there the track's fairly degraded, and here we've got another section where it's just been absolutely smashed. There's some pretty serious ruts here as well. And here's another section where the boys have been having a bit of fun. So we're just about at the Marthavale campsite here, just going through one of the clearings before the campground itself. This is a fairly low-lying area, and it probably gets really wet during winter. And I noticed with some interest that parks have decided to throw these massive boulders everywhere, clearly to stop people from accessing those flatter areas. And here we are just coming into the campsite, and there's the Marthavale Hut. So well worth a visit. Hut's awesome. Great place to hole up for the night. Hope you enjoyed our video.